Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Thursday, January the 6th, and welcome to our video commentary. It is remarkable to me how the politics of the virus now have the Democrats playing defense. Let's go back and study the timeline a little bit to see what I'm talking about. Let's go back 2 years ago, let's say January, February, March of 2020. At that moment, all of the experts were saying that President Trump was going to be reelected, and he was going to be reelected for one primary reason, and that was the state of the American economy. We had the lowest unemployment in 50 years. We had very significant growth. For example, the unemployment rate among blacks and Hispanics was the lowest it had ever been. All of the cards were on the table for President Trump to be reelected, primarily because of the economy. Now, there were other things too working for President Trump. For example, foreign policy. He had just made some incredible deals in the Middle East, and it seemed like he was projecting power around the world, and that is, of course, something that was working on his behalf. But then came the virus in March and April and May, and the Democrats quickly realized that playing the virus card was the only thing they had against Trump. So they promoted the narrative, that Trump was not qualified to be president, that he was doing a horrible job, that he was not doing things correctly, that he was not up to the job, that he didn't listen to the science. I'm sure you remember all of the attacks on President Trump. And let's just be honest about it. He also did not help himself, I think, sometimes, that is President Trump, by the way he reacted to some of these attacks. He didn't have to react to all of them, but he did. And in many ways legitimized a lot of the attacks from some people who, frankly, had no business being legitimized, people at CNN and so on. So the bottom line is that the Democrats were able to turn the virus into a weapon, and they defeated President Trump, I think, in large part because they were able to convince a small group of people, it was a very close election, that they would do a better job at running the politics of the virus. Now we go a year later, and the Democrats are going nowhere. It's like the virus is just throwing them a different curve every 3 weeks. They have no idea what to do. They look totally disorganized. The Biden administration has confusing images or confusing messages constantly. Dr. Fauci seems to be going from one thing to the other, and the whole country is confused. You've got mandates, on one hand, they're telling people you have to be vaccinated, but then on the other hand, people crossing the border do not have to be vaccinated. I mean, there's all kinds of contradictions in the message. And now the virus is actually playing against the Democrats. If you look at the approval numbers for President Biden, he's actually doing very poorly in managing the virus. So it's almost like the virus has flipped and has gone from being a weapon that they used against President Trump into a weapon that is like boomerang against them. And now they're the ones who are being forced to explain this and be forced to explain that. I mean, they've got all these mandates. They're losing in the courts. The whole thing has just completely boomeranged on the Democrats, and they're the ones right now who are paying the price from the virus. And again, look at the approval numbers. The approval numbers, President Biden a year ago started off with pretty decent numbers with respect to the virus, and the numbers went, deep into the year. But for the last 90, 120 days, the numbers on the virus are no better than the numbers on inflation, the numbers on immigration, the numbers on the border, and the numbers all around. And he's not getting any help from the Democrats in the Senate or in the Congress, who are basically stuck with all these mandates or all these lockdowns that are not very popular. The other thing, too, working against President Biden, now he can change this, but at the moment this is working against him, is that the teachers' unions want to close the schools. They do not want to open the schools. We're seeing this play out in Chicago. And that obviously, as we learned in Virginia, the parents want the kids back in schools. They do not want the kids at home learning virtually. The parents want the kids back at school. And the teachers' union in some cities apparently doesn't want to do it. And that's hurting the Democrats, and that's hurting the Biden administration. Now, President Biden could change that by, for example, forcibly coming out and calling on the teachers union to get back in the classroom. He could do that. It would create a tremendous battle within the Democrat Party, but he can do that. if he wants to regain some confidence with the American people. But when I look at the whole politics of the virus, it is amazing to me that what started out as a weapon to defeat President Trump has now basically turned on them. And now the Democrats are the one playing defense when it comes to the virus. It's interesting how things sometimes turn out that way. Thank you for watching. And if today's your birthday, happy birthday. Bye-bye, everybody.